be an amazing adventure today. I'm really surprised how calm and clear and beautiful Jadran Gacka is. I can't wait, because tomorrow we will have a real Croatian river adventure. We will go fishing, kayaking, we will do some research on the sources, and it will really be amazing.
We're going to start a story about beautiful Gacka with a legend. A long time ago, when the Otočec soldiers killed their commander because he was extremely bad to them and punished them even for the least mistake. The Austrian king, when he found out, sent a cavalry unit to punish these bad soldiers which killed their commander. But when they got there, a second before they wanted to start shooting, a woman came, a very old woman, in a plav, a traditional Croatian boat. And she showed them her butt. They started shooting, but somehow their guns weren't working. This woman enchanted their guns, and they wouldn't work.
Djevojka je pošla u goru po vodu, vode da zahvati, kući da se vrati. Susrelo je momče, pa veli djevojče, oj djevojko rode, daj mi malo vode. Susrelo je momče, pa veli djevojče, oj djevojko rode, daj mi malo vode. Djevojka je stala, momku vode dala, pa se pokajala. Djevojka je stala, momku vode dala, pa se pokajala. Gledala je na nas visoka tavana, što mu vode daješ, kad ga ne poznaješ. Gledala je na nas visoka tavana, što mu vode daješ, kad ga ne poznaješ. Ja bi njemu dala srce iz njedara, kamo ne bi dala vode iz bunara. Ja bi njemu dala srce iz njedara, kamo ne bi dala vode iz bunara.
Set halfway down the North Pole and the equator, River Gacka is inside Lika, a historical, geographical region of Croatia. Gacka flows through the Gacka field, and it's a karst field, 80 kilometers square. It springs the southeast corner of the field, Tonković source and the Meyer source, and flows in the northwest direction. Gacka field is the lowest part of Lika. In it, big changes of open field area happens. From the west side, the Gacka field closes Senjsko Bilo. From the southwest, mythological Velebit. And from the northeast, the field is faced towards Mala Kapela. Settlements are mostly set by the edge of the field or on the higher spots in the field, away from Gacka and its tributaries. The central settlement of Gacka field is Otočec, 4,300 of population. The biggest number of sowers this region has had at the beginning of the 20th century, 20 years after the age of the demographic transition. After that follows a long age of immigration. Lika takes over the space between Velebit and the border of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which means it is a very important traffic corridor of Croatia. Gacka field goes through the strait Gacka Lika, which on the north in Žuta Lokva connects Josefina's Road, and on the south leads to Gračac, where it connects with the state road D1. The railway is built in 1925 and goes high above the source part of Gacka. It is the famous Lička pruga, and today the most important railway that connects central and south Croatia. Now you can see how wavy Gacka is, and beautiful. I have been there, I have visited, and I have saw all this. I will tell you a lot. The Gacka flow will soon come to a canal where it stops its natural flow. When it does, it goes straight, which you will see because it is completely artificial. Passing the villages here, Gacka is still natural and very beautiful. But somewhere at the least corner of Gacka, it starts the canal, which is here. It goes straight, which you can obviously see it artificially. Now soon it will come to a crossing of Lika and Gacka where they flow into one. And then they go straight towards the tunnel where the Gacka River ends.
Gacka, bistra, vodu, ledena. Kraj tebe prolaze stoljeća, a ti uvijek ostaješ tu. Ni ljeta, ni zime, ni proljeća zaustavit te ne mogu. Tugu ti nosili ratovi, a sreću svatovi. Teci, bistra vodo ledena, i nosi ponos svojih sinova. Gacka, bistra vodo ledena, teci i vječno čuvaj tragove vremena.
About this source. So River Gacka is the first relief with 18 kilometers of base running length, not counting the smaller streams. In 1965, Gacka lost the southern arm towards Švica and the northern towards Brlog, losing greater parts of its riverbed. The Gacka River is a natural phenomenon, extremely rich in flora and fauna. It is a habitat for 25 different sorts of water plants and as much as 19 groups of macrofauna. Its water temperature remains constant at about 8 to 12 degrees Celsius. Waters are extremely rich in oxygen and are of below average acidity. Its moderate current, mostly muddy bottom, is conducted to plants and animals, especially to the widely known domestic trout, for which it is a natural spawning ground. Waters of River Gacka are still pure and belong to some of the highest quality waters in the world, which creates an obligation to protect and preserve this natural karst phenomenon. Oh my god! So the water here is so clean that you can literally drink it! I'm really feeling like a king and sitting here like a king. And my riches is not rich nature.
The watermill of the Lashkarin family. The building is located on the Zhagarovich spring next to a small bridge used for approaching it from the back. The watermill was reconstructed in 2002 and put into operation again. In addition to the watermill building, the external operating machinery, groove, spindle, spoon-like vanes and log, and two inner facilities were reconstructed. The bent, a small stone-made dam with a footpath on the crown-shaped top, and the wooden bridge with handrails were reconstructed as well. The wooden bridge joins the watermill with a neighboring watermill of the Stimac family. The building was erected in the 19th century on an existing foundation. The watermill stopped working in 1980 and started to decay until the mid-20th century. Inadequate reconstruction work with unacceptable building material was performed in the watermill. Metal sheets were used as roof covering, while plain boards replaced worn-out logs. Only original materials were used in the present reconstructions. Logs were used in the building, while shingles, were used in covering the roof. The milling facilities were reconstructed in the mill, and parts of old facilities and working tools were preserved in the adjoining miller's drill. The owners use the watermill for their own needs nowadays, but it has been open to public as well. I have just interviewed a very kind local man who washes carpets.
Ja sam sad ovdje sa jednim domaćinom, pa možete mi molim vas reći kakav je život ovdje pored Gacka živjeti?
Lijepo, čuješ, to je baš lijepo živjeti pred te Gacke, tu živim, evo tu sam rođen, tako, fino šum Gacke, fino se vozim u Čancu i tako je to.
U čemu vi radite?
Tu perem ovdje tepihe, sam tu baš isto oprao ove tepihe, tepisone, sam pravo i tako i to.
Jako zanimljivo. Možete mi molim vas reći kako je društvo zapravo ovdje u ovom tu malom selu? Kako je ovdje?
Lijepo, fino, to je baš lijepo. Tu je taj restoran, tu ima taj turizam i to.
Ništa, hvala vam. Evo.
Ništa.
Mali kratki. When you look down there, over there, they clean these rags which are just drying here, just washed. And if you see this, so you have to pull this wood up, and then it releases the water down. Now, I tried a few times lifting it, but it just doesn't work. So maybe just lift it so you can see the water.
Hey. Toga je šupa, samo sad, bez prašna, bez ničega. Bez mašina, prirodno, staro.
Here we are at the Mayan Vrila. And when we're here, let's see what they have to say about the Mayan Vrila. So by the half of the 20th century, the river Gacka was economic and social center of life in the Gacka region. This significance came from malinice, water mills, constructed at its springs and falls. Majerova, Tonkovićevo vrilo, Klanac vrilo, Vrilo Pećina, Malinišće are all decorated with wreaths of small wooden mills, sawmills, stup and koshin. Valuable traditional waterfront architecture, Gacka Falls also had malinice constructed especially at the street scale. It performed beautiful forms. Malinice were places for people to gather and socialize. People waited for days at a time. And during this time, meals were exchanged, stories were told, folk-tales developed, Vladimir mill owners led the way for people with mill bread. Ladies at the River Gacka were known far and wide. During the long dry periods when smaller streams would run dry, people came from remote parts of Gacka region, Lika and Krbava for milling at the Gacka River. In modern times, Malinice lost their original purpose and became tourist sites. See the giant millstone which I saw from Djadran. Okay, so we're taking the cut wheat from that, and we're going to put it inside. First we have to actually get the whole mill to work and to go. Now putting it right here, and it's going to go down. This big stone is just going to smash it completely.
Melt.
So let's see how it works. Okay, you can see how fast it's going, and then how down here the flour is coming out. It is really amazing. Very interesting too. You can see how from these grains of wheat, the flour comes out. And learned some facts about flour, which you can see right here. So flour should actually stay on low temperatures in the dark. This is a very dark room, as we can see here. Now the temperature should be around 10 and 15. That's the most favorable temperatures. But if not possible, then keep it at 20 degrees Celsius or less, which is better less. And of course, as you can see here, this is the heater, and right here is the flour.
The River Gacka is a world-famous destination for sports fly fishing. Out of 11 indigenous species of fish that inhabit its waters, the most valuable trophy is the domestic trout, Salmo truta morphafaria, recognized by its orange dots. Every fisherman desires such a trophy, and the River Gacka is a habitat that provides extraordinary conditions for the species spawning and growth. This is why it is also called the homeland of large trout. Rich flora and fauna is favorable for the domestic trout. Plethora of food, clean water, stable temperature, and water chemistry, as well as the riverbed depth, are conducive to its extraordinary growth. Natural spawning grounds, the so-called marble bottom habitats in the riverbed, are preserved, and domestic trout spawning is still a natural process that does not require human intervention. In order to preserve the river Gacka and its trout, the specifics of Gacka River trout are being scientifically studied together with biological and chemical changes in the river.
I have just came here again to fish. Now, I had to go through this theory part, which everybody has to go before they go to fishing. So, the first thing is, well, obviously you have to know the river. You have to know the weather conditions. You have to know at which season what bait you should use and which part of day, and also that depends on which bait you should use for the fish. Today we're going to use artificial flies and fish to catch the delicacy which I talked about, the trout. Now I cannot really wait because I have to start fishing before the day parts us. So, just about the flies itself, they get born underneath water, then they change their shape, grow up a little bit, and then they rise, and then somewhere 10 centimeters before the surface, I'd say somewhere right here, they change their look to a completely new adult stage, and then come out. So the mate and female, male and female, they pair, and then the female goes back down into the water, releases the eggs, and then that cycle goes on and on and on.
So, the first thing that you can see when you come to Lika is how nice the people there are. For example, our local that we stayed at, and the manager of that apartment, he told me theoretically everything I have to know about fishing before I went fishing. So here he's talking about the flies, and he's showing me these artificial baits, and he's explaining everything. Now he's telling me so every fisherman has to have a hat, sunglasses, the proper gear. He has to have the fishing pole, fishing stick, jacket, and boots, because then he has to have protection. For example, this technique has a hook. You have to throw it back and then throw it forward again. So that's why you need sunglasses to protect your eyes. So here we're just putting together the fisher stick, and it's very long, and this is actually a traveling fisher stick, which is a bit different. Now we're going to the lawn and practice time. So what we will do is now we are going to practice throwing this fisherman stick on the lawn. I'm just getting ready, and I'm getting the spring, I'm getting to know this particular stick. I'm just taking down the rope. Everything here has to be perfect. Only if you fish in this type of way for 10 years, then you can become a master. And in the beginning, you don't even know if you like it or not. So as you can see here, he's giving me a demonstration of how he has to do it. So, when you throw it, it has to stop at somewhere, I think, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And it has to start downstairs somewhere, I'd say, at 4 o'clock. So see, it's down, and then 11 o'clock, and now again, down, 11 o'clock, and now he's helping me do it, and I'm a bit wobbly here. It's much, much harder than it looks, believe me. It looks really easy, but it's not. I didn't catch one fish because it was so hard, and of course because it wasn't the time that the fish were eating. So I'm practicing here. What is really interesting that even if you do it so much, you never get bored. I really love fishing.
We are now at a spawning ground of fish and crabs, here on River Coastal Park. And its source, Djadran. We're going to get there very soon. Now the first thing you might see here is this boat, but this is not a plug. This is used for working when they have to cut this resa, and you can see with what they do it. So this is a very good example just to see which tools they would use in this one west. Now let's move on. So to the spawning grounds themselves. Everything here is put by order. Now it's a bit loud here because the water goes from here, then out there. So as we can see, these are the spawning ground. Everything here is ordered by either type of fish and the age of fish. So first would go the trout, then the Californian trout, the small babies and the eggs, then the middle fish aged, and then the big fish. Now, I talked a bit with the director of the fish and crab spawning ground, and I heard so that they let into the river either the small eggs and the big fish, because if you send the middle-aged fish, they were raised in this river. They're not very big and they're not used to predators, so they are spawned in artificial places, which is not very good for surviving in the river itself. So that's why they send big fish, which are very strong, or the eggs, which they get born in the river and they have a more likely percent chance to survive. Let's move on. Maybe if you saw, a fish just went very fast here. And you can see the circles, extremely fast. And that's one of the fish. So as you can see here, the water goes through here and out there. And everything here is by.
Stop.
So we are now at the spawning ground of crabs. These green boxes are where they are. And if you look below them, you can see the bricks. And the bricks have holes in them. Now, in the natural world, the crabs would find a hole somewhere in a rock or somewhere in the relief, and they would hide there. So here they try to give them a sense of this real world by giving them the bricks so that they can find a hole in there. And inside is the water, and inside the water is some sandy ground and earth so that they can really feel like they're at home. Now, if you see these white like shields, this was an experiment to see, do crabs prefer colder water or hotter water? So they put nylon on these white shields, and then the water was hotter and warmer because of these shields, which warm up the water. And these ones, which are normal, are just normal how according to the weather.
A ujedno sam I gladan.
And then Dennis asked me if I'm hungry. And he gave me this water grass. Now, as you can see, I was very unsure to eat it or not. But it's very good, and it tastes like carrot, which is extremely interesting.
So we are now on this little bridge. And here they describe the fauna of River Gacka. So let me just look here. The types of crabs and fish. This is the river crab. Now this was that crab which they shipped to France in wagons to eat. And that's how they actually disappeared from Gacka. This is the white-legged crab. It's a much smaller crab also, they are spawning it here. And I think that this would be the type of crab which these river crabs might eat. The smaller crabs. Fish and crabs are all cannibals, so they eat each other. This is the Californian trout. Now this is not originally from here, and you can guess it by the name. It's Californian trout. So it was brought here, and it has been here for over 50 years. It survived, and River Gacka needs it for the sports flying fishing. So for tourism. Over here, we have the trout of River Gacka. So the Othian one. And it's very famous for its red dots. Here there are approximately 29 red dots on a fish. Now here we can see that this one is a female by the shape specifically of the head. Here it's the bottom part of the mouth is rounded up and shaped correctly into a circle. But with a male, it's longer, it's sharper, and then it covers up like a small horn the top lip. Moving on, the Lipian fish, also brought from foreign country. Now this fish, and not including the Californian trout, is actually not very capable of staying alive by itself. It grows there for a lifetime that it does, but then it dies and it doesn't respawn in Gacka. Over here is the shikov. It is also originally from River Gacka. You can still find it. They're very long, up to 30 centimeters long, and they're like a snake. They're round. You can describe them like an eel. They hide in the grasses, and you can still sometimes find them in River Gacka. But these are on the Croatian Red Book and almost extinct. Štuka, a very famous fish. This is a predator, a big predator. And what's specific about Štuka is the last part, the tail part, which is longer than in other fish, which allows it to go faster than usually other fish do. Now this predator doesn't seek its prey. It waits for the prey to seek it. So he just waits in grass for the prey to come. And then he comes in at the speed of light with his tail, which he wraps around, and then he comes and eats his prey. Now, also one thing about his mouth. He has around 700 teeth, all shaped to reverse. Why? Because when the fish comes in, it's stuck like this, and it cannot go out. So this is karas. Now we have came to the warm water fish. Now, this fish does not live, for example, where the trout does, because it likes warm waters. So you can mostly find it in the Gornje Švidsko jezero, Upper Švidsko jezero, which still does exist, but you cannot find trout there, for example. So that's the difference. Now all of this following fish are all warm water fish. Linjak. Then we have Bodorka, Grgić, a very ugly fish, and Crvenperka. So here we are at the Švidsko Gornje jezero, as we call it, so the upper lake. Now, as we all know, lakes are stagnant waters which are on land, and they can be artificial or natural. In this case, this one is natural. It used to be part of River Gacka's natural flow, but nowadays, only a few times when they lift up the dam, then Gacka water comes into this lake. A sinkhole is a funnily shaped and almost circular hollow. At its bottom, there can be some fertile red soil. Sinkholes are often the only arable ground in the karst belief. As you can see, there's a sinkhole right there. And by the way, I'm really enjoying picking up these daisies for the salad. So we are now at the place where the Donje Švidsko jezero used to be. And if you look, you can still see the outline of the lake with the forest it shows. A long time ago, when Gacka still had its natural flow, it would stop here and go into its underground place, and it's called Berinka. We are now at Švica and the old flow of Gacka. A long time ago, this powerful blue, strong river used to flow here and smash down. And not very far from here used to be the Švički slapovi, world famous. But now they're not here anymore. And not very far away from that used to be one of the first Croatian hydroelectric plants.
Chocolate fudge and red balloons, argyle socks and the blue suede shoes. A stroll in Central Park with you, bare feet on sands in Malibu. Drinks at 2 in the afternoon. I'm in just that kind of a mood. Holding hands, love's pantomime, shooting glances, time to time. Champagne bubbles, Cupid's brew, to usher in the rising moon. Oh, my heart whistles a happy tune. I'm in just that kind of a mood. Dance until the crack of dawn, making love on the front lawn. Venus beams a loving nod in fields of gold. Shall we both trod around the world, just me and you? I'm in just that kind of a mood. Holding hands, love's pantomime, shooting glances, time to time. Champagne bubbles, Cupid's brew, to usher in the rising moon. Oh, my heart whistles a happy tune. I'm in just that kind of a mood.
What is really cool about Gacka is how many jobs people are doing. One example is right here, cattle breeding. But not just cattle breeding, there is wood industry, there is honey industry and bee industry, there's fishing, there are places where they breed animals which are no longer in the river and then send them back into the river. It's just amazing.
A long time ago, the main job was cattle breeding. But soon as people moved out and as the milk prices went down, people stopped and stopped. However, with the rise of tourism, people have started to have to do cattle breeding for gastronomical reasons. I really love lamb. And you? So we met a very nice lady which has been in for 2 years in the bee and honey industry. What we are going to be explained now is how they keep the bees in these boxes. Now during winter, the bees are not allowed to get out because there are no plants. And if they go on to the grass, well, they can very easily die. As you can see, there are white rocks on each box because the lid is extremely easily opened. The lady will show us how to open it right in a second now. She is walking over, but we should be very careful. As you can see, we are far away from the bees because they are active now. You will just see now an example how easily the lid opens. See, even with the rock, it opens easily. And imagine without the rock, the wind can blow it away and the bees will come out, which we do not want to happen. But soon, and now, these small yellow flowers are coming out, so they are letting the bees temporarily to leave and pollute these flowers, and they come back. Then we get the honey, and then we eat the honey. The lady was so kind that she actually showed us how they extract honey from the honey bars. So we take the honey bars out of these yellow boxes and then we put it into the honey machine. We rotate the handle extremely fast and then it's rammed and the honey squeezes out.
Sad on išle van, evo, puzit ćemo mi nje van, nek idu malo po travi.
Right, so as you can see, the chickens are all following me because they think I'm going to get food and water. Okay, this is a chicken run. Wow.
I saw in another meadow next to another house, they also have chickens. Chickens, which also eat from the ground worms and not artificial corn. And they have all their nice nutritious eggs. People here really eat healthy. Yum!
Right, so we're just in a cheese shopping factory and we're just now buying the best cheese I've ever tasted. You will have to taste it if you're watching this. As you can see, there are so many types of cheeses, but this one is the best one. This one right here. Skrivats. Then you can see that all the cheeses are nice. Yeah, standing in front of the cheese factory and cheese shop. And of course, they have this giant wall shaped as cheese. It's really cheesy, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, so amongst every other job that we said that people here are doing, they are also making the best cheese I have ever tasted. Okay, I think that not only the people in Gacka work, I think the ants work a lot.
Plow is a traditional boat made by carving out the fair trunk. It is present at the Gacka River and not found in any neighboring bodies of water. Plow is a monarch seal of undetermined age, whose name was derived from the Old Slavic verb plavati, which means to swim. Every household along the river Gacka used it, mostly for harvesting resa, underground plants that fed the cast. It was also used for river transport, moving wheat for malenice, for grinding, but also for leisure time of boys and girls. As farming and herds and conditions changed, together with the standard of living, plow lost its original purpose in the life of Gacka settlers and became a tourist attraction at the river.
So I am right now sitting in a plow, and this giant traditional boat is made from one piece of wood and is used for cutting these plants. As we all know, Gacka is very famous for its rich flora and fauna, and the flora can mostly be seen by this resa. Resa is like the lungs of Gacka. It makes it so pure and so clear and beautiful.
And cold.
And cold. And when this is cut, it goes all the way to the wooden dam. When it stops at the wooden dam, people take it, and a long time ago it was used for fulfilling the cattle breeding during the winters.
We visited a man, Ivan Kostelets, who has a house at the very coast of River Gacka. He comes here each weekend. Now I have lived and seen a beautiful one, which is amazing, is that when he hears Ivan's voice, he comes and asks for food. What? He looks a bit mad, doesn't he? He's coming closer. Oh, he's a bit mad, isn't... Oh! He almost hit the camera! Okay, he must be hungry. Let's feed him. So I fed him some bread. Now what's really fascinating is that he knows when he has enough food and then he stops eating. Beautiful swan.
I'm now at River Gacka's Estavel, a very rare and interesting phenomenon. Now, what happens here and how it works is very simple. When it's a wet season, like it is right now, the water rises, and it's right here. But when it's dry, for example summer, then the water goes down into the underground. Once, a very long time ago, and you can still somewhere see the remains, was an old mill. As I realized, all over the meadows here near Gacka are these mole holes. They're everywhere. Now, did you actually know that moles are not bad at all? They're actually really good for us and the environment. They don't eat plants and vegetables that we grow, as they always illustrated when they're showing moles. They actually eat small bugs, and they help us because they make the soil much more fertile. So this is where River Gacka flows into the tunnel, goes to the lake, and into the hydroelectric plant. This whole flow of the river actually was made artificially by humans, so that it can flow into the tunnel. And this is death zone, kind of Gacka and Lika, because they both flow into the tunnel and then into the hydroelectric plant. So this is the crossing of Lika and Gacka, where actually Gacka flows into Lika, right here. So Gacka is from the houses right there, and Lika is right there towards those hills. and they go together here in the new canal. It goes all the way there to the tunnel and then into the lake. And here you can see the old flow of Gacka, and this is the wooden dam which stops it. But Gacka used to go here and then all the way to Švica, and that's where it stopped. We've now stopped at this rock. Now this is not just any rock. This was the border between the Turkish Empire and Croatia. That was not true. Because they didn't have borders there marked with wood and rocks and that. That's just a legend. What actually happened was that up in that hill was a town called Arupium. And that was the Yapod Empire and the Yapod tribe. And they had a palace up there. And one reason why they did, because firstly, it's a hill. What's specific about that hill is that it has this water spring. And it's amazing, you know. Hill, you have a source of water, plants, everything is there. And I also think that I had fertile soil. Now, this is one part of that temple, because the temple collapsed, and people would take these rocks and use them for their own needs. They would use it for making barns, making their houses. As I showed you yesterday, the Lička kuća, the Ličin house, and they would use it for their own needs. But sometimes they would put it here along the road. This was a column, a part of a column. When you enter the empire, when you enter the palace, you have usually two columns and the corridor. And this is actually from the Roman times, so that's why it looks like it does. So this is the place where the people that were building the town of Arupium, they would take the stones from here, and that's where they got the rock. You can very clearly see here how this is correctly cut out and taken, and it looks like the stairs, right? Now I'm going to go into the bottom. We are now entering Špina Pećina. It's the oldest find of people living here in whole Lika. Now, what we're going to see is what people had, somewhere from the old Stone Age passing towards the new Stone Age.
There's a beautiful day headed your way. Keep your head up, you'll be okay. A beautiful day waiting for you. Just open your eyes, you'll see it's true. Good times, sunshine, gonna be here in no time now. Bad times, gray skies, push them all away, turn them upside down. You're gonna break new ground, turn everything around. You're gonna live your life. There's a beautiful day headed your way. Keep your head up, you'll be okay. Beautiful day waiting for you. Just open your eyes, you'll see it's true. A beautiful day. Tick-tock, don't stop. Every little thing, it'll be alright. Flip-flop, just drop. Any negativity
very big cave, by the way. And what we can really see from this is that this really is a karst relief. Well, caves, as we learned in geography, are a big sign of karst relief. And if you hear that, water, what is forming now is stalagmite and stalactite, but not just any stalagmite and stalactite. Stalagmites and stalactites here are formed from ice. Because when outside the temperature is above minus 10 degrees, then here it's extremely cold as it is now, and they're formed. When outside it's extremely hot, well then, they grow. We are now at the oldest archaeological founding in the Gacka region. This is Pečina, and people were here, well, the foundings that were found here date up to 10,000 years before Christ. That's a lot. Now, what I can say about this is that they found lots of bronze pottery, which really shows that it was going towards the Bronze Age from the Stone Age. And they also found some bones, but from animals. So this is a place where you can really see that this is karst relief. You can see some limestone cracks on these giant rocks, a cave beneath it, and a sinkhole. And as you can see, on the bottom of the sinkhole, the ground is always fertile. So, from here we can see how the Gacka field starts from there and ends up right there at the mountains, which you can see over there. Now, as every other karst field in Croatia, it goes southeast and northwest. We are here 500 meters above sea level, but the field is 450 meters above sea level. The Mauritian religion was brought here by Roman merchants and slaves from Persia. Now, it is a religion that has been brought here and people have started believing it. So this is an example of an altar. They would kill an animal or a lamb and worship it for the god Mithra here. Now this is actually an illustration somehow of Mithra carved into stone. So these are his legs, you can see, and his body. He lost his head, but doesn't matter. These are his arms. He is holding a knife. And now you can see that he is kneeling onto a bull. This is a bull, and he's holding his head. He killed this bull, and he's the god of light. Now on the side you can see these two lampions, right? This is the lampion of sun, and this is the lampion of the moon. And on his chest you can see a little bit, not very clearly, but there should be a moon illustrated right here, and the sun right here.
Unfortunately, our journey has come to an end. I filled my car with potatoes from Lika, flour, honey, and much more things to eat from Lika. I feel richer with friends, Dennis and his family. And I will come to Gacka many, many more times. Goodbye. See you again very soon.